Welcome back to another episode of Endurance Insights with myself, Coach Mark Cullen, coach to a number of competitive to elite triathletes, runners, and CrossFit athletes. And every week I hop on here to talk about a topic either that has been submitted by a user or that I'm seeing with my athletes or just something I've maybe seen an Instagram reel about that I want to touch on and hopefully give you good information that you can use in your training and racing. So, two topics that are top of mind for me right now. I've been reading some really interesting books, and then one from one of the athletes I'm working with who's had a bit of a struggle here that I'm hoping I can provide some light for some people on. So, first one, I've actually read two really interesting books recently on the culture of both Kenyan and Ethiopian marathon runners and what makes them truly great and the best in the world, obviously, by far, when we look at global marathon majors or medals won at the Olympics and anything pretty much mile and longer. Even more so when we get to 10K, half marathon, marathon. These guys are just dominating out there, guys and gals. The two books I've been reading, and I highly recommend reading them. They're super interesting. One was Running with the Kenyans, and I can't pronounce the guy's first name, Adaran Finn. And then the second one is called Out of Thin Air, which is by Michael Crawley, where he goes to Ethiopia, mostly in Addis Ababa, and trains with a bunch of the athletes there. Where Finn was running with the Kenyans, so he moved to E10 in Kenya, the training hotbed there, and trained inside the culture and sort of was exploring some of those barefoot narratives that people talk about, the food, the altitude, things like that. So, what have I learned from these books of why these athletes are so good? A lot of people want to jump to the genetics side of things, and there doesn't seem to be one unique genetic or physiological trait, but more a lot of small advantages and the environment and culture that really makes them uh, such good runners, and just the amount of people that are thinking on this elite level, which is why there's so many people coming out of this and why this ethnic group might be a little more overrepresented when you look at the elite runners out there. So, what did I notice from this? First of all, the environmental and lifestyle advantages. These guys get so much free aerobic base. First of all, so many of them run to and from school barefoot when they are in elementary school and even high school. So they might run a 5K each way to school in barefoot, and they really learn to a lot of the good mechanics, but also they're building aerobic base. And a lot of them are doing this at high altitude. So a lot of their areas are sitting at 2,000 to 2,600 meters. That's like 7,000 feet, if not higher in some areas. So living and training at altitude just supports that higher hemoglobin mass and aerobic development over the years and makes them so much better when they come down to sea level for a lot of these fast marathon races. Also, a lot of the time in these areas, it's super hilly terrain. So they are running ridiculous elevation on all these runs. So getting really strong on the hills and teaching their heart rate to be able to go up, but also recover. And when they come again down to flatter courses, it just feels that much easier and their heart rate doesn't drift as much. And it just feels much easier mentally for them. Also, these areas can be super hot. It is Africa. So, well, it might be a little cooler at some of those really high spots. They can be at 2,000, 2,600 meters, and it's super hot. We know training and adapting in that heat stuff. And a lot of the research we're seeing in people doing sauna or hot tubs or hot baths on top of their training to, again, grow that hemoglobin mass and that blood plasma volume goes such a long way to improving performance. A lot of people at sea level use the heat as sort of a substitute for altitude, but these guys for years and years are running 100 plus miles a week, getting altitude exposure, running on the hills and in the heat, and their bodies are going to adjust to it eventually. So they have all these tools when they come down to sea level and they're running the Chicago Marathon that has no elevation gain on it. It's nice and cool and it's at sea level. And yeah, you wonder why these guys find these events not easier, but they can run so much faster for the duration of their marathon, which is why they're running in the low 2 hours. And also just the high daily movement from childhood. We have a lot of our kids are sitting on screens and then going to school all day and doing nothing, where these guys, to get anywhere, they're walking and running and they have lots of outdoor time and they're not pinned to screens. So they're naturally just spending more time out there again in the heat, altitude, hilly terrain, and are getting way more steps and aerobic volume in there. So some of the training culture is also really interesting too. Is like there's just so many more role models there who have shown the way of this, of how they can change their lives by becoming good at running and being able to go on the global stage and win 50, 100 grand, sign a huge contract with an apparel brand or a nutrition sponsor, things like that. I think you're a little more motivated to go out there every single day when you know this could literally change your life and you could go from living in a very simple, impoverished life to something that is like you have wealth to. And these guys aren't doing it so that, some of them do, to buy like sweet cars and houses, but most of them will go and they'll fully change their community and buy a big plot of land and build a bunch of houses for the people that help support them or the people that are in need in their community. So these runners have such a massive impact in their community, and just they're such a huge group density. So all these guys are out there, guys and girls are out there at 4, I think a lot of them 5, 6 in the morning, and they'll travel to these key running destinations and go out there and run anything from 10 to 24 miles on these crazy hilly routes on dirt and gravel or on pavement. And they're just stacking so many weeks of that. And they just sort of follow the fastest people. And sometimes they might blow up, but they'll also get better week over week. And what they do outside of training is super important too. They eat super clean. They eat typically enough calories to support it. A lot of them who are pushing that running dream are resting. They'll take a nap, sit down during the day and relax and actually absorb the training before going out for maybe another 30-minute to 60-minute run in the evening as well. So that simplicity and consistency adds up to so much. And then, yeah, when you combine that with the group training density and then their economic and social incentives to get better at this running, just makes such a massive difference. And then in their like nutrition is super interesting. They eat these very like carb forward, low fat, sort of food based diets that help support big training volumes. They're probably, I read a stat, a lot of them are like 75% carbs, maybe like 13% fat, and around 10% protein. So a lot of these intake coming from sort of staple drinks like tea and water and things like that. So that's a lot of the Kenyans there. And then the Ethiopians, it seems like from their data, maybe a little bit lower in the carbs, but a little bit higher in the protein and fat. But yeah, just insane amounts of carbs that they're eating during this time. And yeah, it just, they're super lean. They're not eating a lot of like crazy fatty, like treats and stuff like that. So that's why they stay super lean as well and adapt to all of this stuff. So yeah, it's something that we don't see a lot in our Western culture when we have so many of these like, yeah, fake foods that are in there that are so packed with sugar and crap and stuff in there. These guys eat super clean. So again, why they stay super lean and get really fast as well. So yeah, I just thought that would be interesting for people to know. Like, I think there's a lot of factors we can take from that. Maybe not as people who work full-time jobs, but just the simplicity of how they do it, the amount of time, the group environments they have, the nutritional pieces, all of this goes to show that if you set up the right environment and have the right incentives to get out of bed every day and do this, that you're gonna become an incredible athlete. So another one I didn't really mention, but a lot of them have, because they've seen so many role models of people who grew up the same as them, maybe grew up on a farm in Kenya or Ethiopia and got to the world stage at the top level. They feel like they have a path there, and they believe that any of them believe they can win races and have the potential to do this. So that belief is a huge one. I think when I'm working with athletes a lot, I notice people don't have very much belief in themselves. And to have belief but rooted in evidence is a huge way to get a lot better. So that's kind of my spiel on Kenya and Ethiopia. Been super interesting to read about it. And I'm going to read a bit on the Japanese culture coming up soon, which is another iconic running culture that has just loads and loads of college students that can run like under 63 minutes for the half for a lot of the college men there. So super interesting stuff there. So the second topic I wanted to touch quickly on was nutritional balance. So making sure you're getting enough calories to support the training. A bit of an anecdote. I had an athlete recently only running 20 kilometers a week, pretty new starting up with this athlete, and they ended up getting a stress fracture in their tibia. Started to pry in a bunch of questions here around gait and training and stuff like that. But running 20 kilometers a week of mostly easy running should not be giving someone a stress fracture. When I sort of hammered down into it, got down to this athlete was a lot of times in a 500 to 750 cal deficit in their days while they're trying to ramp up training volume and doing some intensity on the bike and a bit of running. But we know, like, when you stack that much time of calorie deficit, it's just going to put your bones at such a higher risk of bone stress injuries. So just especially as you're ramping up some of your training, like, you're going to need to take in more carbs to fill that void in the calories you're doing every day. And even if you're looking to try, if you're after performance in the end, you got to try and eat as close to a calorie balance as possible to give your body the fuel it needs to actually be able to absorb all of the work that you're doing. I'm always of the mindset of a performance coach. If you eat enough, do more work, your body is going to naturally go to a spot where it is in a good body composition for the events you're doing if you're putting it under that demand. So, if you're a marathon runner and you're doing a fair amount of running and you're getting that volume up and eating enough in the week to support it, your body's still probably going to trend in a positive direction. If you feel like you're a little bit overweight, it's going to go to the spot that it feels like it needs to allow you to perform. You're probably going to be able to do more work and rev up that metabolism and be burning more in the day to day. So just make sure you're eating enough calories to actually support the training that you're doing. And if you're trying to do losing, like, kind of cutting calories to lose weight, you might want to stick to a little more non-impact sports like biking and swimming and elliptical and stuff like that, because you're going to be at higher stress for bone injuries, and you're probably going to have to dial back in terms of the intensity and volume of training you're doing, or you're just going to dig yourself a fatigue or injury hole. So just wanted to hammer that down, especially as people are going into January and are starting to ramp up their volume. Listen to your body, do an audit every now and then, pair your Garmin and MyFitnessPal. You don't have to get obsessive about it, but audit a few of your bigger days where you're going to maybe have your 2,000 calorie base metabolic rate, plus maybe you're burning an extra 1,000 in activity, and go see how much you ate that day and see if you're way off, either over or under, and start to arm yourself with the knowledge so you can be there in your kitchen and know, hey, yeah, I've been probably a little light on the carbs today. I probably should up some carbs and protein with this final meal of the day. So eat enough if you're truly performance driven. That's where my mindset comes from. I'm never going to be the weight loss coach out there, but eat enough, do the work, and your body will go where it needs to perform. Have a good one, everyone. We'll catch up next week. Message me on Instagram or on Spotify here or YouTube if you have any topics you wanted me to hit on, or anything you're passionate about coming up. Send me a message on that. And as always, if you can, toss a like or subscribe on this. Goes a long way to helping me get this information out there. I've got a lot of great messages of people who have been enjoying this. So just want to continue to push the good word here and help you all continue with your performance journeys. Have a good one, and we'll see you next week. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays for people if I don't get a chance to catch up with you. Cheers.